Wow, it's actually snowing again. It's so weird. It only tends to snow when I'm about to always do these type of videos, which if you guys aren't aware, today we are going to be doing the ultimate Christmas buying guide for the Nintendo Switch 2 today. I don't know why it's snowing in my room of all places, especially considering that I have a roof. Probably need to get that checked out, but that's besides the point. This is going to be something really exciting because this is the first year that the Nintendo Switch 2 has been out during the holiday season, and I wanted to do a video showing off the best things to buy and also the best things to avoid for this system right here. You guys always love these videos. They've always been super helpful and informative, so I tend to do the same thing, especially with the Switch 2 being its first year out. I think that this is going to be a truly special video. So let's get into the Christmas spirit and start talking about the Nintendo Switch 2. So obviously with the Nintendo Switch 2, there are three different systems to buy. There's the standard Nintendo Switch 2 that has no game included for $450. There's also two other bundles out there that actually include a game. One of these bundles is actually a Mario Kart bundle that includes Mario Kart World for the Nintendo Switch 2. However, it is a digital copy. I will point out that this was a bundle that was supposed to not be available anymore, but it seems that you can go into stores and still find this, which this is a pretty good price as you're getting this bundle for $500. Considering that Mario Kart World is a $80 game, I think the fact that you're getting it at a discounted rate of $50 is a nice deal. So that should probably be one of the bundles you're on the lookout for, unless the person you are shopping for is a big physical collector. Which I can't blame you if you go that path, because that's what I did. I bought this game physically and ended up paying way more because the physical was $80. But there is also another bundle out there that has Pokemon Legends ZA for $500 as well, which that one is still giving you a discount. However, in my personal opinion, if you can find the Mario Kart one, I think that's the one that makes the most sense to go out of the three bundles, because the most savings is right there owning that. There's also a Costco bundle that includes Mario Kart World and a year of Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack for $525. That one I think is actually the best bundle overall, because there's still a lot of savings within that. You're getting the 1 year of Nintendo Switch Online for $25 essentially, which that is typically $50. So to get all of that for $525 plus Mario Kart World, I think there is a lot of value within that bundle, but that bundle is also only at Costco. Obviously, it's all going to come down to preference, but that's besides the point. At this point in the video, you've already decided what Nintendo Switch 2 system you're going to go with. Now we need to talk about the games. What are the best games to get for the Nintendo Switch 2 system, and what is also the games that you should be avoiding? I want to switch this up by showing off a game you should buy, and then the next thing being something you shouldn't buy. So let's start off with probably what is going to be the big game to get for the Nintendo Switch 2. That is Donkey Kong Bonanza. Obviously this year we did not receive a 3D Mario game, but we did receive a 3D Donkey Kong game that is developed by the same people that did Mario Odyssey. Not only did this game come out for the Nintendo Switch 2 very early on, it is also now a Game of the Year nominee. A lot of people really like this game, and I do think that this is going to be one of those games that will be one of the things that you must own onto the system. If you've followed these videos before, I've always talked about how I consider the premium Switch 1 games. Those games are things like Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Smash Bros, and Animal Crossing. In my opinion, Donkey Kong Bonanza is a part of that family of must-own Switch 2 titles. And I'm sure as we get further through the Switch 2 cycle, we're going to have more premium titles to add to that lineup. Alright, let's start off with one to avoid. That is Hogwarts Legacy for the Nintendo Switch 2. If you guys have not heard, if you own the Nintendo Switch 1 version of Hogwarts Legacy, all you have to do is put the cartridge in, then open the game up through the Nintendo Switch 2, and you will be able to upgrade your Switch 1 version of the game for $10. I put that in here because Hogwarts Legacy is still pretty expensive on the Nintendo Switch 2, and you're able to find the Switch 1 version of Hogwarts Legacy for about $20. which I definitely think within the Christmas season right now, we all want to save as much money as possible. So I think going through the Switch 1 route makes the most sense, as the Switch 2 version is pretty expensive still. So that's why I would say avoid buying the Switch 2 version, because there's other routes. I guess if you wanted to go with this version, I guess it would just come down to the person if they really want the Switch 2 physical copy of the game. Listen, I am always trying to give you guys good recommendations while trying to not have you spend too much money. And obviously with how everything is right now, you're going to want to get as much savings as possible. So I'm putting a game here that I think is definitely worth your time and money, and best of all, it's a very cheap game. That game is Pac-Man World 2 Repack. This is the remake of Pac-Man World 2, and the best part of this is that this game is absolutely incredible. But it's a game for $30. I still can't believe that Bandai Namco charged only $30 for this, considering the amount of work that they put into this. And to have such a special 3D game for $30, I definitely think this is one to be looking out for this Christmas season, especially if you're trying to get a lot of games but not spend a lot of money, because you got games like Mario Kart World that's $80, and then the rest of the other stuff is $70. So you're definitely going to try to save money if you can, and this is one to be on the lookout to get this Christmas season. Alright, we have one here that is a set of games that I definitely think you should be avoiding. I don't think that this is going to be explained very well, and I could see a lot of parents buying this not realizing that their child could potentially already have this. And the thing that I'm saying to avoid are the Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games out there. If you guys haven't been seeing, Nintendo has released a lot of their more popular Switch 1 games back onto the Switch 2 with like a Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, essentially, where the game runs better or it has added content, stuff like that. And I could see parents buying this being like, oh, there's a new Zelda game onto the Nintendo Switch 2, when they don't realize that it's actually the same thing for the Switch 1. The only reason why I would say buy these Switch 2 editions is if you haven't played these games on the Switch 1. If you're buying for a family who's never had a Switch 1, then yeah, pick up these Switch 2 editions. However, I will say that there's going to be a lot of opportunity to get these things cheaper. Like with the two Zeldas here, I would say don't buy these physically. And the reason why I'm saying that is I think you should invest that money into the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. Because if you buy that, Nintendo is actually going to give you these two versions of the game for free if you already own the Switch 1 editions. Because a lot of these Switch 2 edition games physically are going to be $70 to all the way $80. Because a lot of these Switch 2 edition games, at least when it comes to the physical side of things, are $70 to all the way to $80. And the reason behind that is they're selling the Switch 1 game and then the extra content on top of that. These Switch 2 edition games can digitally be upgraded for $10 to all the way to $20 if you already own these things physically, or I guess digital. But I also think you should stay away from Mario Party Jamboree, because this game needs the Nintendo Switch 2 camera. And with the amount of accessories you need for this game, this Mario Party game ends up being like $130. And with the amount of content you get for the Nintendo Switch 2 edition is not worth the money. So I actually think stay away from this completely. Kirby and the Forgotten Land, you guys know that I did not like the new content that they added within this, because a lot of it felt like remixed levels and not much added content. Now, I mean, the final boss of this was awesome, but for the money that I put into this, I really didn't think it was worth it. The Nintendo Switch 2 editions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom were entirely different games, and I highly recommend those Switch 2 editions. However, I'm still going to say to go with the expansion pack, because there's so much value there, because you're going to have things like the GameCube service, the NES service, Super Nintendo, and to get these things for free, I think will definitely make a lot more sense than buying these physically, unless you just don't own these games already. That's when I would be like, hey, buy this. I think one of the more popular games that's going to be sold this Christmas season for the Switch 2 will be Hades 2, as the physical copy of this game was just released. However, something that I feel that's important to add on is that the physical copy is $20 more than what it's being sold digital. I really want the physical copy. I'm a big physical guy, so I definitely think Hades 2 is going to be one that people are going to want, but I think it's my job to let you know the differences between the two versions. Now, I do think the developers realized that they're charging way more for this, so they were trying to add more to the physical edition, so they actually have a manual inside, which that's something that we typically don't see in these games anymore. Not to mention, I think Hades 2 is going to be really popular right now, considering that it just got nominated for the Game of the Year. So I definitely think that that's going to be one to be on the lookout for this Christmas season. Especially to those that like roguelike games, Hades 2 will be an experience like none other. If you guys played Hades 1 and loved it, you're gonna love Hades 2. Now, one to potentially avoid is Split Fiction. And the reason why I have this here is that this actually isn't a cartridge at all. This is a code in box. And I do know that a lot of people do not like the code in box stuff. And I don't feel like they advertise it very well that this is a code in box. I mean, you can see right here in a small fine print that it's a code in box, but I do think if a kid opens this up, it's like, oh, it's a new game. I can't wait to put this in my Switch 2. They open it up and it's a code in box. Another reason why I have this here as a potential thing to avoid is that this is a 2-player only game. I think a lot of people will buy this thinking, oh, dude, this game looks awesome. I'm sure my son will love to play that. But if your son has no one to play with, there's no point of playing this because there's no way to play this game by yourself. Split Fiction is a phenomenal game, but it is a game that you need somebody else to play with. So if you don't have anybody like that, stay away from this because there's no way to play by yourself. But if you do end up buying it, the good thing about this is that you get 2 copies of the game essentially. Basically, if one person owns it, they can send their friend the friend pass essentially, and they can download it and play it with them. So that is kind of a cool thing with this. Next up on the list has to be Meteoroid Prime 4. Now, this game has not come out yet by the time that this comes out, but it's expected that this is going to be a really good game. And a lot of people have been waiting for this game. It was announced back in 2017, and it is now finally arriving on both the Switch 1 and the Switch 2. Now, something to highlight is that the Switch 2 edition of the game is going to give you more frame rate options on top of mouse controls. But if you don't care about that stuff, then buying just the standard Switch 1 edition I think will be fine because you'll be saving an extra $10 there. And with how the promotion of this game has been, I think Nintendo is considering this their big holiday release, as it's coming out in the month of December. And typically when stuff's coming out in November, December, Nintendo markets that game as their holiday release. But something to highlight is that a lot of the Prime fans are not happy with certain things that are going on with this game. There's been characters talking non-stop, which is something completely new to these games. So I think it's important to let you guys know that people are excited, but there are people upset with certain things that are happening with this game. Obviously, this is a game that comes out later into December, and I felt like it was important to bring this into the holiday shopping guide because I do think a lot of people are going to ask for this. So I didn't feel right by not talking about it at all, but it could potentially be a bad game. All right, something that I'm putting on here to avoid is probably going to be a more controversial one. However, I've talked about how this is the worst third-party port out there for the Nintendo Switch 2. That game is Persona 3 Reload. Now, I did a video review talking about why the Switch 2 version was a joke, because it is a joke. Atlus even confirmed that they rushed to have this game be released, probably for the holiday season. And the reason why it's a joke is that it's actually at a locked 30 frames per second. But here's the weird part. It has weird frame pacing that the frame rate looks really bad even though it's at a locked 30 frames per second. This is something that I highlighted in my review video, and you guys in the comments were talking about how it's called frame pacing, which I still don't know the technical term behind that, but the whole point of it is that the frame rate on this game looks absolutely horrible, and it runs at a 60 frames per second on the Steam Deck, which I think is crazy considering that the Switch 2 hardware is very similar to the Steam Deck. Atlus has confirmed that they're going to fix this, but they haven't said when. And considering that they've said that they've rushed this game out, I think they even said that realistically this game should have came out mid 2026. I don't think you're going to get that free update where they fix the game to where it's, I guess, going to be 60 frames per second till mid next year. And at that point, I still don't think it is worth playing on the Nintendo Switch 2. I obviously don't like this game, but I do understand that a lot of people like it. And I'm saying if you have the capability, play this on a different system, not the Switch 2. Obviously, when that update comes out, I'm sure I'll have a different opinion on the Switch 2 version of this, but the fact that Atlus said that they rushed this, you shouldn't buy it just with that in mind, in my personal opinion. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be saying, Max, you've been showing a bunch of family-friendly games. I need something for my Nintendo Switch 2 that's dark, that's brutal, that's got guts, blood, all of that stuff into it. And I got the perfect game for you. Or I guess not necessarily for you, whoever you're shopping for, because I'm sure you got someone in mind that likes those type of games. I got Cyberpunk 2077. We were talking about how Persona 3 is the worst port ever. Cyberpunk probably is the best port ever, as CD Projekt Red went all out on the Nintendo Switch 2 version of this game. This game comes with the Phantom Liberty DLC, and best of all, the whole game, including the DLC, is all on cartridge. CD Projekt Red also utilized the Nintendo Switch 2 hardware to the absolute limits, because you can do things like use mouse controls into this. You can also play around with motion controls. CD Projekt Red definitely had a fun time developing this for the Nintendo Switch 2, and in general, this is one of my favorite video games of all time. So the fact that this can be put onto the Nintendo Switch 2 is honestly crazy. And visually, it looks amazing on the hardware. I think a lot of people are going to ask, how's the frame rate of it? The frame rate is awesome. In fact, CD Projekt Red gives you two options. You can customize the frame rate tier. You have a performance mode and a quality mode. The quality mode has it at a locked 30 frames per second, while performance mode puts it at 40 frames per second. Both modes have been fantastic, and I love playing this on the Switch 2. This is probably my most played Nintendo Switch 2 game. I highly recommend it. I do know that it's still $70, but I'm telling you, with the amount of content that you get within Cyberpunk, especially considering that you're getting the Phantom Liberty DLC, it is definitely worth your time and money. And if you're looking for more mature experiences on the Switch 2, Assassin's Creed Shadows is supposed to drop on the Switch 2. However, the moment that I'm filming this, the game is not out yet. However, we've been seeing footage, and it looks to be that could be one of the best Nintendo Switch 2 ports of all time. Especially with the amount of effort Ubisoft has been going into the Nintendo Switch 2. I do think Assassin's Creed Shadow will be a big one to get onto the Switch 2, so probably look into that one as well if you're looking for more mature experiences for the system. Next up on the list is going to be one that I would put probably in the buy, but also avoid. I think this all comes down to the type of person you're buying for. That game is Star Wars Outlaws. Now, the reason why I would say maybe avoid this is because it's not going to be your traditional Star Wars experience that you're thinking of. Star Wars Outlaws is amazing in my opinion. I will say that a lot of people don't like this game, but I do believe that people had other expectations for this, as this isn't your traditional Star Wars experience. If I was to compare what this game is, I feel like it's Star Wars if it meets Tomb Raider and Uncharted, which I love the Uncharted series, which is probably why I love this game so much. Especially with all the stealth mechanics that is within Star Wars Outlaws, I've been having a lot of fun with this game. It's also the Gold Edition. This has all of the DLC, and I do think you're going to be seeing this on sale throughout the Christmas season for $40. And I think for $40, this is a game that you should definitely pick up if this is your type of experience. If you're a diehard Star Wars fan, you might not like this. But if you're still like an Uncharted fan, still want to play a Star Wars game on the Switch 2, definitely think you should give it a try for $40, especially considering that this is also an amazing Nintendo Switch 2 port. If Cyberpunk didn't exist, this would probably be the best Switch port. In fact, Ubisoft is still updating this game to run and look even better on the Switch 2. So you can see that Ubisoft truly cares about making these Switch 2 games look amazing on the system. Star Wars Outlaws is definitely one that I think you should check out if this is your type of game. Next up on the list is Kirby Air Riders. Now, Kirby Air Riders is probably one of the best Nintendo Switch 2 games out there. However, I did my video review, which I guess for whatever reason is a controversial video. Even though I gave the game an 8 out of 10, apparently you guys think 8 is a horrible score. Even though back in my time, 8 used to be a really good score, but y'all weren't happy that I gave this an 8 out of 10. Which my main issues with this game was the single player stuff. I feel like that from a single player perspective, Kirby Air Riders is a little bit weak in that department. However, Kirby Air Riders is still a phenomenal game on the Switch 2, especially if you like to have online games. Kirby Air Riders, in my opinion, is the ultimate online multiplayer game. With the amount of modes that you can do within this game that has online capability is absolutely insane. And if you're shopping for someone that loves Kirby, this is a must buy for the system. But I will say, if you're looking for like a single player game, I don't think Kirby Air Riders is one to be on the lookout for. I think my opinion is going to be a hot take though when it comes to that, but for me, single player stuff, I didn't have that much fun with. And I want to emphasize that it does have a story mode. It's called Road Trip, but it plays like a Super Smash Bros. Adventure mode. And if you want the most out of it, you're supposed to play it with other characters. But after doing it with one run, I wasn't really interested in doing it with the rest of the cast. But for that one run adventure that I had, it was fun. Our next one is going to also be one that is buy/avoid. That's going to be Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. I love this game. In fact, it is probably my favorite Nintendo Switch 2 game of all time. The reason why I'm saying though, buy/avoid, is it all comes down to being if these are the type of games that the person you're shopping for likes, or I guess if you're shopping for yourself if you like or not. Because editor Coleman, who's editing this one right now, does not like Hyrule Warriors. He considers this gameplay to be repetitive, which a lot of people I think also share the same similarities. However, I still greatly enjoy this game. I felt like this is the most they've ever done into a Warriors-like game in terms of having different content into it. And it's one that I would recommend if you guys like these type of games that are hack and slashes. But if the person you're shopping for isn't a fan of that, then you might want to stay away. But something to also point out is that this is essentially the final thing in the whole Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom storyline, and that this is actually canon. So if you got someone that's a big Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom fan, especially with that storyline, then maybe still buy this anyways, because this is a big part to that story. So the reason why I would say avoid is if you're not a fan of that type of gameplay. But I also feel like it's hard to avoid this if you're a big Zelda guy. So it's like pick your poison, essentially. I will tell you that I'm having a lot of fun. It's my favorite Hyrule Warriors game of all time, especially seeing that this game is at a locked 60 frames per second is absolutely insane, especially if you played Age of Calamity. That game ran not the greatest on the Switch. It was dropping frames left and right, and there's only one character into this game that really plays around with the game's frame rate. So this is definitely one that I would say pick your poison. But it's one of those things that's kind of like you kind of have to play it if you're a big Zelda guy. So like, I don't know. I enjoy it though. So I understand that not everyone's going to have the funds to buy everything that we talked about today. So what I thought would be a nice addition to this Christmas guide is showing off, like, if you could only buy 5 games, for example, this is what I would buy. And throughout this video, I really feel like that this is the definitive list of what you should pick up. Donkey Kong Bonanza, absolutely. Pokemon Legends EA, I think that that's a must-buy game for the Switch 2, especially this year. Now, you might already be picking this up, though, depending what Nintendo Switch 2 bundle you get. Mario Kart World, kind of the same thing. You might already be buying this game depending the Nintendo Switch 2 bundle you end up getting, which, if you want my recommendation, I think the Costco bundle is the best way to go. These are some of the best Nintendo exclusives to be on the lookout for when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2. But I also know that not everyone likes the exclusive stuff. They want some third party in there. That's why I put Cyberpunk into this video as one of the must-buy games. And Pac-Man World 2, an already incredible game, but for 30 bucks. And so, in my opinion, if you can only buy 5 games, which even then, maybe you don't want to do 5 games, these would probably be the 5 that I would look at the most. Guys, that is the end of this Christmas buying guide. I definitely want to know what you think. Is there things in here that you're like, oh, yes, I want that for Christmas? Or absolutely not, I don't want that. Or is there also things that you feel like that should have been a part of this buying guide? You know, I think a lot of people are going to be like, what about the Switch 2 camera? That's not in here because I don't think it should be bought, to be completely honest, unless Nintendo does more with it. But that's besides the point. Let's go ahead and close this video off. What in the world? How do I have snow happening again in the house? Okay, that's besides the point. Guys, I have been talking for way too much. Make sure to backslash that subscribe button, like the video, check out the Twitter, Discord, all that good stuff in the description below. Please let me know if this buying guide videos are super helpful. We've always done this. We've been doing it for Black Friday too, and I really like to help you guys out. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I now need to go figure out how to stop snow happening inside of my house when I have a roof, which I noticed that the roof is white. Is that a reason why it's snowing in my room? I don't know. That's besides the point. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.